We are kicking off our Heart Health at 4 series today. February is American Heart Month, and unfortunately, heart disease is the leading cause of death for both men and women in the United States. So every Tuesday this month at 4 o'clock, we'll discuss how to keep a healthy heart. And today we're talking about the basics, the ABCs of heart health. Joining me now is Dr. James DeLemos. He is the Chief of Cardiology at Parkland and a Professor of Medicine at UT Southwestern. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Doctor. So we're talking about the heart, important organ. A lot can go wrong with it. So when we're talking about heart disease, what exactly are we talking about?
You know, there are really a bunch of different kinds of heart disease. Most people think of it as what we call coronary artery disease, which is blockages in the arteries that feed the blood and oxygen to the heart. But there are also other forms like weakening of the heart muscle. We call that heart failure, and even electrical problems, atrial fibrillation being the most common of those.
When you talk about blockages, is that where this term plaque would come into play? We've heard that for the teeth, but this actually can apply to the heart as well, right?
Yeah, this is worse plaque than the plaque in your teeth for sure, but that's exactly right. What happens is that cholesterol deposits in the walls of the artery of the heart, and over time that can narrow the arteries and restrict the blood flow. And sometimes those plaques can break open and a blood clot forms, and that's really what a heart attack is when the plaques break open and then a blood clot forms and it damages the heart muscle.
So obviously everyone wants to be aware of this, wants to be on top of this, but when we're talking about who's most at risk for heart disease, what populations, what demographics are we talking about?
Well, the first thing to recognize is that all of us as we get older are at risk. So this is the most common disease in adults for both women and men. I think there's a misperception that it's really a problem for men, but it's the #1 killer of women as well. So over time, we're all at risk, but some of us are more or less at risk, and some of the things we can control and some we can't. Age and our family history we really can't control, but high cholesterol, high blood pressure, physical inactivity, poor diet, all of those are things we can control to lower our risk. And the more of those risk factors that we have, the higher our risk is.
And so when we're talking about heart disease, and one way this can manifest would be a heart attack, the aftermath sort of. When we're talking about symptoms though, they can vary between men and women. So can we sort of spell out what a man would see versus a woman would see or experience when we're talking about a heart attack?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some differences between men and women. The classic symptom is a heavy pressure in the middle of the chest that may go down the left arm, but most people don't have the perfect textbook symptoms, and women are less likely to have the textbook symptoms than men. They may present with just shortness of breath or a vague unease, sweatiness, and older women in particular may just have alterations in the way they're acting or behaving. So we have to have basically a high index of suspicion if we have symptoms in our chest when we're getting older, because that may represent heart pain.
So we just really have to learn to understand our bodies and pay close attention, it sounds like.
That's exactly right.
And when we're talking about lowering our risk, obviously we know how important exercise is, and I would imagine diet too. What are some other things, or focusing on those two things, that we need to do to lower our chances of heart disease?
Well, I think emphasizing the exercise part is really important, because often we think about exercise as a means to lose weight, but exercise and improving our fitness has tremendous benefits for heart health, even if we can't lose weight, because it's hard for us as we get older to lose weight, but all of us can exercise on a regular basis.
And coming up in a little bit on the show, we're going to show you some simple couch potato exercises. But Dr. DeLemos, thank you for sort of giving us the background picture as we better understand heart disease for Heart Month. Really appreciate your time here this afternoon.
Pleasure to be here.